Hello everyone, no have name I want here, otherwise known as Patrick. In this episode, we'll be doing a Legacies of Allure tier list. Uh, there's sadly no tier maker, but because we don't have any of the cards, but I have this makeshift one. So first, I'm just going to explain how I'll be ranking these. These are all my opinions, of course. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. So first I'll just explain how I'll be ranking them with each of these numbers. S plus means this is the best card the faction has in my opinion. There's only going to be one S plus tier card, and it's the card I believe is by far the best card that they have. S are going to be for cards that I think are currently too strong. They could see a small adjustment to be weaker, or they do a thing that is very oppressive and whatnot. So S is for cards that are, I think, currently too strong. A is for just solid, good cards. They're very strong, but I don't think they need to be adjusted. I think they're fine as is. I think every faction can have really good cards, and I think A is where all these cards would go. B is just average. They're not insanely good. They're not going to be insanely good in every list, but they're good in certain lists, or they're very they fill a role that other cards can't, and so you'll have them just for that specific reason. C is very neat. Is where I would put like very niche cards. They're not insanely good, but they fill some. They do a thing that um, you might want to do in very specific situations. So C would be for niche. D is, I would say, they're just bad. They're not good cards at all. In order to use them, it requires very too many specific things to happen. It's too easy for your opponent to play around. There's just better options, all that. So D is really just bad cards. And F tier is, in my opinion, the worst card that they have. There's no real reason to play it, and so on and so forth. So first we'll be doing Arengard, and we'll actually be ranking the heroes on their own. Obviously, heroes are their best card. They would always be S plus tier. So I'll just be ranking them by themselves, just in a vacuum. No, well, I guess not in a vacuum, but I'll be ranking them on their own and just describe, hey, how good are their abilities and whatnot. First, Aurelia. I'm not actually gonna rank the actual heroes. I'm just gonna rank their abilities and whatnot, because they're heroes. They're always gonna be S plus tier. So first off is Glory. Glory is a really unique card. Um, it's really good if you have like a tanky Aurelia, or Aurelia that can move really fast, because she can very easily get into position, take a hit, and then she glories a lot of very good units the opponent has, and this can win you the game on its own. So if you really want to do a tanky Aurelia, I think Glory is quite effective at doing that. No damage or whatsoever and all that. So I think Glory is can be pretty A tier. I think if you do it right and you do it in the right build, Glory can easily uh, win you games. Next up is Solar Aegis. I think Solar Aegis is by far Aurelia's best card for a couple reasons. One, it just makes a unit can't be attacked. Like 80% of the way things kill things in this game is by hitting it with a big attack number. So Solar Aegis just says, no, you're not going to do that. Aurelia has plenty of mana, so she can easily just swap this into any of her builds and have mana to use it. She gets an extra action if she's in the right spot, so actions are always incredibly good. And the fact that the unit can't charge doesn't really matter. You're going to charge something with like a knight or something, and then you're going to Solar Aegis it. It's not going to die. And then you can even Solar Aegis Royal Griffin, which we'll get to later, and that's a whole combo. So I think Solar Aegis is by far Aurelia's best card. I think you can put it into any list she has, and it's going to do good. Sun's Fervor. I would also put this in A tier, simply because if you're not wanting a super aggressive Aurelia, one that doesn't want to charge in and all that, you don't really want to run Sun's Fervor. That's 3 gold. But if you do want to play like a very aggressive Aurelia, one that's going to charge in, deal damage, snipe units, Sun's Fervor is just a cheaper Velocity Greaves. So there's really no reason not to run it if you want her to charge into things. Plus it gives her the option of imbued, so she basically has pseudo true damage in a way, because she can either deal physical damage to deal with magic resist, or magic damage to deal with all physical scenarios and all that. Not S tier, just because I can see builds not wanting to run it every single time. Plus I think it's fine as is. Yeah, I don't think it needs any adjustments. Finally, all the Sunstrikes, all the leveled abilities, I'm just going to rank as 1. Again, it's just preference at this point. Again, I think Sunstrikes are solidly an A. I don't think they're too strong. If Aurelia wants to just sit back and cast Sunstrike, she can do so. It's not too hard to just damage units with Aurelia, or I guess an Arengard in general. So it's not too hard to get Sunstrike value. And so you can kind of see the 3 archetypes Aurelia has. There's tanky Aurelia, charge and damage Aurelia, mage Aurelia, and then there's the Solar Aegis, which fits well in all of them just because Aurelia has enough mana to do so. So this is where I would rank all of Aurelia's abilities. All of them are quite strong. I don't think any of them are too strong. I think they're fine as is. Plus Aurelia, just a really solid unit with good stats. 5 mana, good damaging stats, flying. It's just very great. Next is Tristan, the tanky boy. Right. Braveheart. I would say Braveheart is pretty A tier. I think it's one, essentially for what you're getting. You can kind of look at it as 1 gold for an additional power when you care. There's not a whole lot of units with more than 6 health, but when you go against them, Braveheart, I would say, is pretty much an auto-include. He just has more power and allows him to kill things. So if you just want to kill some of the bigger things, Tristan's incredibly good at doing that. So I would say it's pretty A tier in my opinion. Arrest. Rest is, I would say, is Tristan's best ability. Again, it's pretty. You can pretty much put this in any list. If you're trying to do a damage Tristan, you can arrest something and then whack it. It saves Tristan health, so there's no downside there. If you're trying to go more control-y Tristan, arrest something so it's disarmed, throw something else at it. If you're going a tanky Tristan, arrest it and whack it. It's just insanely good with arrest and with how he works. Especially now that he has Steadfast. Since Tristan has Steadfast, if units want to whack him, they have to stand next to him. Where Tristan can just arrest and hit him. So it's just incredibly good now. Without Steadfast, I would probably say it's just A. It's alright. But with Steadfast, I'd say it's his best ability. It's just universally amazing, and there's no situation where I wouldn't want arrest with them. Shield Bash. Shield Bash, again, is just an A. I don't think it's too strong. It's just a straightforward, you hit something for 1 damage, and then it's stunned or exhausted. which is basically it's done for the round. So you can run up to the enemy's strongest unit, shield bash it, and it's done for the round. And then you can push all units up and do stuff. And considering it's Tristan's only mana ability, you get 3 uses. 3 uses are plenty in a game, so the fact Tristan doesn't have any mana issues makes Shield Bash pretty good. And then lastly are Divine Favors. I would put these in B in all honesty, just for one simple reason. Just because the shields exist, the items shield, they're essentially exactly like Divine Favor. In fact, they're exactly like Divine Favor, except they take an item slot. So if you're going 3 slotted Tristan with 3 items, and you still need more survivability, yeah, sure, take Divine Favor. It does really well in that. But unless you're going specifically 3 item slots and need a tankier Tristan, which I don't think he really needs to be tankier, Divine Favor kind of just is meh. I would personally like to see Divine Favor be changed in a way to where he can give shields to other units, or he can continuously gain shields or whatnot. But yeah, just because the shield items exist, I'm putting it in B tier. But don't discourage you from taking it. If you want to take it, take it. Don't let me tell you what to do. Alright, so that's the heroes. Again, I'm not going to put them on the tier list just because they're clearly just way better than every other unit. So first, I'm just going to go from cheapest to most expensive, and just go from there. Squire, yeah, I think is pretty B tier. It's 2 gold. Its stats aren't terrible. It's pretty much just like I need an action, or I need something to deal with those pesky 1 damage pingers. And so you'd play Squire just to stand in certain locations and be a pest for the other enemy cheap units. So, just B tier. It's not insanely good or weak. Same thing I do with Apprentice Wizard. I would just say he's B. He's got Imbued, so he does magic damage if that comes into play. It's got 1 range, so if he's like super late game, Apprentice Wizard has a use because he can just do 1 damage to something if he's nearby. And Diminish is pretty underrated, I would say. It's just you're reducing an enemy's power by 1, which makes your rally units harder to kill. Sure, there's like Goblin Archers and Gladehawks and all that kill Apprentice Wizard, but I think Diminish, you get 1 Diminish off, I think it's pretty worth it anyway. So personally, I would say B tier for him. Seraph, I would also put B tier. It's not a must-have. I don't think it's insanely good, but if you want to use her, she's pretty good. Buffs the spellcasters pretty well. She's very evasive with 3 movement and flying, so she can easily get out of harm's way while buffing stuff. And she has a very important thing in allowing your spellcasters to target spellproof, which is very, very important. So, I'd put her in B. Shield Bearer. I would say Shield Bearer is A tier. Just because Arengard, as you'll see, they have a ton of 1 health support units. So there's a lot of things that snipe them, or just it's increasing a damage threshold. Sorry about my speaking. Increasing a damage threshold by just 1 is insanely powerful. A priest having 2 health instantly means Gladehawk can't take it. A Goblin Archer doesn't kill it in 1 turn. Getting a 2 health unit out of that range means a lot of units can't take it, and then so on and so forth. So just increasing a unit's health by 1, essentially, is incredibly strong, especially in Arengard when they have a lot of very cheap or very fragile units. So I think Shield Bearer is pretty much a must-take in at least 1 or 2 of in every kingdom, just so that you can protect those very important units you want. Longbow Archer. Longbow Archer, I would say, is in B. It's not super incredibly strong. It's just a very generic, I'm gonna ping things from very far away. Not really much to talk about. It's very cheap. It does its job very well. So yeah, I would just say B. Plus 2 health means not a lot of things can snipe it. Craftsman. I will say Craftsman is S. Uh, for a couple of reasons. We'll get into one unit in particular, but essentially, for 3 gold, you're pretty much doing 2 damage at least, which is really, really good for 3 gold. I think it's the only 3 gold that can do it consistently, just in the entire game. Plus, if you put a shield bearer on it, it suddenly has 3 health, and that pretty much means nothing can efficiently trade with it. Because it's either they have to use a 3 damage charger, which then you can kill right after. That's only a 3 gold unit, you don't care. And if units like Hatchling can't kill it, Flanker can't kill it, Small Hunters can't kill it in one hit. So there's just a lot of things that suddenly can't kill it if you put a shield bearer shield on it. And even without it, it's still 2 damage for 3 gold. You can easily mass these and then just wait for your opponent to move forward, shoot them, and then call it a day. I think shield bearer could either use a gold increased or a change in how it works and functions. But yeah, Craftsman I would say is a clear S tier. I'd be surprised if you didn't take at least 2 or 3 of them in every list. Next is Tempest Mage. Again, B tier. I had no complaints about it. He's a very good support caster. The only real issue was that he's slow, no combinable, but if he gets into a good spot and you protect him properly, he can do a lot of things, exhausting way more expensive units than him to just get a huge advantage there. Just a classic deal 2 damage ability. It's only 4 gold. He has a decent attacking stats for a support unit, so yeah, it's not really too good, too strong, too weak. I think he's a very good as is. Tactician. For those of you who know me, this is S plus tier. This is Arengard's best unit in my opinion, no doubt in my mind. I think it's the best unit in the entire game for a couple reasons. So I'm actually gonna have to explain it using the board. Oh, I had these later. Let me just get rid of these. I was gonna use it over here, and I was like, yeah, there's not enough space. It's just wonky. So essentially, this is what you do with Tactician. You take 2 of them, you put them in these 2 spots, and now you have your entire board with the potential of any of one of Tactician's buffs. You can simply wait for your opponent to move, buff up a couple units like a knight or crossbowman. You move them in, you kill a thing, and then all of a sudden you can do it again next round. It's easy to protect with shield bearer and longbow archers getting +1 range, meaning like Gladehawk and stuff can't kill it. Just increasing any unit's stats by 1 is incredibly busted. This game is so finely tuned that any sort of small buff like that instantly makes it something broken or incredibly good. It's only 4 gold. You can usually just use it just to waste an action. It has no resource, so you can just use it willy-nilly, no problem. I think Tactician is just such a huge problem with just how well it is. The stats it can give, like you have a Knights here, and all of a sudden it can charge these 3 hexes if you just give it +1 movement. If there's a Warg Rider here, all of a sudden you have a Heavy Knight for a turn, it kills it. It can buff literally anything in Arengard's army and have it be incredibly powerful. So there's just so many things I can go into with Tactician that makes it incredibly strong. I just don't want to waste so much time. Just take my word for it. Like, you just put 2 Tacticians here, and then you suddenly have infinite power, infinite potential. I mean, with what you can do round 1, and then even in round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's still gonna be incredibly powerful. I have literally seen games where it's like a longbowman and a tactician, and then that's single-handedly winning them the game because I can't move up and kill it or whatever. So yeah, in my opinion, tactician is the most polarizing card in the entire game. It's by far the best card in Arengard, in my opinion. I just don't see a reason not to ever take two. Pikeman. In my opinion, it's B tier. People will probably put it in C. The reason I put it in B is just because, in a vacuum, it does what it wants to do. If you don't want your opponent to run up and kill you, Pikeman is the best unit for that. It has steadfast, meaning you can't charge into it. It has this nice ability where it can attack and move back into its spot, so it can stay in formation while still killing something. Sure, it doesn't have the best damage stats compared to Crosswoman. It's completely garbage, but I think Pikeman's fine as is. I think if you consider that some units are just way too polarizing, like these two, then you take them out of the picture. I think Pikeman's perfectly fine as is. Swordsman. I'm putting Swordsman in D tier probably, because I don't really see a reason to use it. Sure, it's got some good, decent stats, but I think there's just other options you could have, other things that you'd rather be taking than a 5 gold swordsman. It's not completely terrible. I just think it could use something. I don't know what, but it's just don't see a real big use for having swordsman. Priest. Priest is A tier. Pretty much every Arengard is going to have at least one priest, if not two. It's just the best healer in the game currently. It's got great range. Its dispel able to remove a debuff and heal it is great. I don't think it needs a change, despite some people saying it could use a small nerf. I think it's fine as is. I've never seen a priest and be frustrated like, oh, I lost the game because of a priest. I look at it and it's like, oh, well, he played well, and so he got rewarded. So, priest is, I would say, pretty much always going to run at least one in the list, draft one, because I just think it's very important. Enforcer. Yeah, I think Enforcer is B. Kind of similar to Pikeman. It does really well at holding the line. Being able to disarm something and whack it with something else is very strong. It's very hard to kill for 5 gold, 4 health, armor 1. Insanely strong. Pretty much means any cheap units, this is just going to wash over if it gets to the late game. Any big unit is just going to disarm forever. So Enforcer is quite strong. Not A tier, because I can see you not taking it, but it's still incredibly strong as is. Pegasus. Again, now I'm putting him in B tier. You pretty much want to run Pegasus as like a sniper. You'd want one just because like, oh, this person misplayed or misdrafted this unit, so I can put my Pegasus here, snipe their unit, and then call it a day. The fact it can't be debuffed or exhausted is also really important because your opponent can't like root it or disarm it or whatever if once they see all this in a good position. So if once it's in good position, the only real answer is to kill it, and if they can't kill it, it's amazing. It is pretty much a one and done kind of unit though, because 3 health isn't a whole lot. If this is gonna dive into the enemy's backline, it's gonna die. But also incredibly busted with Tactician, 5 movement. Good luck, anything that your opponent was trying to protect, it's immediately gonna die. Halberdier, I would say it's also in line with Pikeman. Same reason. It's just a slightly more expensive version than Pikeman. So if you just want a bit more gold in your front line when you're having like a backline army, Halberdier is essentially the same thing. Also, this isn't ranked from left to right either. This is just the order I put it in. So there's that. Elite Longbow Archer. Again, same thing for Archer. If you just want a bit more gold in your thing, actually, I would put him in C tier just because there are a lot of units that can snipe it. Pegasus for one. There's Wyvern, Hatchling, Flanker. People don't really run Flanker, but I just because you can run Tactician and Longbowman, just pretty much just a better elite longbow archer. But it's not bad per se. It's just that there's a lot of things that can kill elite longbow archer. You're spending 3 gold for essentially 1 power. I think you can spend that 3 gold elsewhere, and whatnot. I think there's it's just slightly too much of a risk, but it's not bad per se. I usually see people run it and have it do work. It's just you have to protect it a bit more than your average archer and whatnot. So I would just say C tier for that reason. Spellbreaker. Torn on A and B. I think I'm going to do B just because you don't really want to draft it all the time. A's are usually like must drafts, but for a tech card, this is insanely strong. It's got being able to give magic resist 3, makes Arengard's armor, centric army, able to suddenly take no damage from magic. It's incredibly strong. It has a silence, so it beats enemy casters. And it's just its stats are incredibly good. 3 power, 1 range, 2 movement, 4 health. I would like to see just small adjustments because this is technically a tech card, and as a tech card, it's insanely strong. I don't know what to change about it. Maybe just reduce its range by 1, but I wouldn't really want to change it too much. I think it's fine as is. People aren't really taking it all the time, so I'll just say put him in B. Elite Swordsman, I would also say B in my opinion. Just for 2 extra gold, you're getting a swordsman, except he can regenerate his own health in a way with shield 1. He can get an extra power, and it's just sword and counter strike. Counter strike, in my opinion, makes this card worth taking. Because if your opponent wants to take it, suddenly they're taking damage, and you can trade back with it. Also, it constantly being able to gain shield 1 is really good against like archer armies, because it can run up, take a damage, take the damage from the shield, gain that shield back, maybe kill something or whatnot. And plus, just having a sudden 4 power unit for 7 gold is quite strong. Most of the time, in order for you to get 4 power baseline, it's 12 gold, so just having the option is quite good. Not a must take, but still quite solid in my opinion. Tempest Mage. Again, I would just say B tier. Same reason for all the other like upgrades. If you just want spend a little bit more money on this unit, go ahead. I don't think it's a must take though. So same reason for why you'd want to take Tempest Mage. It's a good support unit that can do some good damage. So yeah. Knight. I'm putting Knight in A tier. I kind of want to put him in S tier, but I don't think he needs to be nerfed or changed. I think he's fine as is. I just think other units are either too weak compared to him. But otherwise, yeah, I think Knight's pretty much a must take in certain lists. You don't have to draft him, but I would be surprised if you don't have at least 1 or 2 in your list, just on the off chance you want to use them, just because it's just a good unit. Even if you take away the armor 1, these are just solid stats. So as soon as you give it armored 1, it makes certain units just completely useless against them. So yeah, A tier for there. High Priest. Fortunately, I'm gonna have to put High Priest in D, just because it's such a huge investment. There's so many things that can snipe it. There's so many things that can just sneak behind you, kill it. Sure, there is Shield Bearer that can give High Priest an extra shield, but it's just so incredibly hard to protect it. Once you're taking money away from your offensive capabilities, which you usually want, it's not terrible per se. I could probably put it in C, not D, but I can see some niche units some niche cases with High Priest, but I think just a regular Priest is just as good, if not better, on every single scenario. Uh, but I can see you using High Priest. I would just recommend regular Priest more. Frost Maiden, kind of the same reason for High Priest. As much I really wish this unit would work. It's got great debuffs, great control capabilities. It's just the same thing for High Priest. It's super easy to snipe. Yes, you have shield bearers on it, but it's only so much you can do to protect the units, in my opinion. At some point, they're gonna sneak in and kill it. She's only gonna get like 1 or 2 mana off. She's probably not gonna get Ice Nova off either. It's just way too fragile for other options you can get, sadly. But again, it can work. I just wish she had a small buff to her. Royal Griffin. I'm putting him in B. A lot of B's. But, I mean, I think Arengard's a pretty solid, well-balanced army. Just a couple outliers. Royal Griffin. When we talk about Aurelia, you can Solar Aegis this, move into the enemy army, and then just attack something, all while being completely immune to your attacks. Royal Griffin is basically a knight, except you're trading defensive power for the potential of more offensive power. Because once this gets to the back line and it's killing 2 things at once, it's really hard to stop it. It can easily just run away with the game if it gets into a good position and starts whacking things. So it's really good. It's such a good offensive powerhouse if it's in the right spot in the right situation. It's not incredibly must-take, just because I think Knights are generally just a bit better in most situations. But Royal Griffin is always a nice one to have. Being able to have just an extra action is incredibly good. You can move 6 range, move, attack, so it's just really good to have the extra action. Paladin, again, I would say B, just incredibly solid. Has imbued, 4 power, 6 health. Sunburst is an incredibly strong ability. 2 mana isn't really that big of an issue for Paladin. You really only want to use this twice. You're going to use this, you're going to move Paladin up, use it. Suddenly got a Solar Aegis for the round. It deals some chip damage to units around it. So, again, it's just a really solid unit. I recommend at least having 1 in your army list, just in off chance you need magic damage. But, yeah, it does some pretty good damage for its cost. Angel. I'm going to put Angel in C. Just only because it requires a lot of support for it. Sure, the Divine Shield is good, but Shield Bearer I would say is just as good. Just because it's extremely cheap and you really only need that 1 extra health to make a unit suddenly take 2 hits instead of 1. So the Shield 2 is kind of meh. Angel's main appeal is the Resurrect. Resurrect is good, but for 5 gold, I would say that options are very niche. It's got good damaging stats, flying 3, 3, 5, so it's got like Aurelia stats, but I just think it's really hard to get the Resurrect to pay off for the Angel. Just because a lot of these really cheap units they're fine, but they're not incredibly busted. Maybe a Crossbowman, but I think Angel is just a little bit on the weaker side, in my opinion. Battering Ram, again, I would say it's B. It's incredibly strong, don't get me wrong. Armor 2 makes it pretty much immune to any kind of physical damage. Can't be moved by enemy effects, so it's always going to stay where you want it to be. And the Ram ability is also just a ton of damage. The only issue I have with Battering Ram is that magic damage rarely hurts it. This is kind of like the enemy doesn't have any magic damage. This will be my last 11 gold. Plop it down, winning the game that way. but break hurts it very badly. Magic Demons hurts it very badly. Any kind of just once this is the only unit you have, it gets swarmed incredibly easily and dies. It requires essentially the opponent to run into a battering ram for it to work. There's a Grand Wizard combo with teleport that can work, but I think that's a really expensive combo in my opinion. So I just take the average of both of them. But battering ram can win you games, but usually opponents are prepared for it, and uh, when they're prepared for it, battering ram loses a lot of its value. Heavy Knight, again, it's a knight, A tier. Same reason why you want to take a knight. It's just very solid, very good stats, baseline. It's got anytime a physical damage is pretty much useless against it. It's easily buffed by Tactician for a plethora of different ways. So Knight and Heavy Knight are just incredibly good, incredibly solid units that you can take in pretty much any list and they'll do good. Catapult. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I really think the main issue for Catapult is that it is really expensive for not that much of an advantage. And once this gets into melee combat, once the enemy somehow gets this into melee combat, it's just blah. Even with Tactician, Catapult just isn't, I would say, just isn't that good. Yeah, I would rather have 2 elite longbow archers, which deal more average DPS than just a single catapult. Catapult's main strength is that it has 4 health, so it's not gonna die in one hit by pretty much anything. But it's just really hard to make it work. I think it could use a buff and whatnot, but it's just I don't really. I think there are better options than just a catapult, in my opinion. Now the 15 guild units. Ultra Knight. I would say I'd kind of A tier in my opinion, just because it's Ultra Knight. I would only say it's an A tier just because it's just a knight, but you're not really gonna want to run 2. This is usually a one and done type unit. Just 15 gold. 2 15 gold units is really expensive. Your opponent can probably prepare for it in some way or another, but I think Ultra Knight's an A tier unit. You can easily have it in any list as your one knight and have it be good. Once it's good, it's incredibly good. It's the only unit with 5 power and charging, which is insane. 7 health and armor 1, just all that. So I would say it's A tier just because it's a knight. You don't really need to run it in every list, but when it is good, it's incredibly good. Grand Wizard. I would put Grand Wizard in B. It's got a ton of utility. Diminish is meh. I wish it was something else, but it's not terrible. The fact once it's out of mana, it can still support stuff with its infinite diminish by 0 cost diminishing. Doesn't make it terrible. Teleport is incredibly strong. You can suddenly make all these units, Arengard units, with no charging. Teleport next to a unit they want to hit, they hit it. Or you can even teleport enemy units away. You can teleport enemy units away. An Arcane Blast is just a insanely damaging ability. Essentially, if you use Arcane Blast on something, it's gonna die. And Seraph works incredibly well with it. So yeah, I would say Grand Wizard is not terribly weak. Main issue is that it's fragile. A lot of things can easily just walk up and kill it, but if you can protect it and you get all of its mana off, it's incredibly powerful, but it has its issues. And then Archangel. I would say Archangel's B, just because its revive has such a wider range of options. You suddenly have Knights available, you have Royal Griffin, which is an incredibly powerful combo. You have Paladin, it's just a lot of really good resurrect options, which is why I would say it's just slightly better than Angel. And I would actually say Divine Shield with Shield 3 is where I would want shields to be at. I would rather either go for 1 for really cheap or 3 and just say, yeah, this unit's not ever gonna die. So yeah, being able to resurrect a Royal Griffin, which essentially gives you suddenly gives you 3 actions. Throwing Divine Shield on him, so it's got effectively 8 health. Run the Royal Griffin to the enemy line. Kill stuff is incredibly powerful. Resurrecting a Paladin next to an enemy, having a whack it, and then suddenly, or have it Sunburst, kill a couple of cheap units. It's resurrecting a knight, just to have another knight. It's just, I would say Resurrect for the Archangel is just better than Archangel for the regular Angel, just because you have more options, you have better options, and I would say it's just easier to protect. It's got better stats, and you can usually just have it sit back and have it defend itself and all that. So that is the Arengard tier list. Way more on the upside. Again, how I rank it, S plus units that I think are just the best by far. S are units I would like to see changes to that I think are just too strong, units that are just super annoying to deal with. A are incredibly solid units that I think are very good, not overpowered. I don't think these need changes, but I think they're still very good. B is just generic, average. I don't see a problem with you running them. C, I would say, is slightly on the weaker side, and D is just terrible. Oh, there's no F. Yeah, I would say I'd probably just say Catapult. I'd put Catapult in F as their worst card. It's just super expensive. I'd rather, like I said, you can just run Elite Longbow Archers. You can run Tactician Elite Longbow Archers. Essentially, a Catapult at that point. It's just too expensive for what it does. I think it can really use a substantial buff to make it see play. But yeah, this is my Arengard tier list. You can fight with me in the comments, but this is just my opinion. And I'll see you in the next tier list.